Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South. Happy to be with you on this incredible evening and looking forward to this show. This is part 2 of our Georgia hot takes, preseason hot takes. It's going to be a really fun show tonight. But before we hop in, man, there's a lot of breaking news today. If you haven't already done so, go check out our TikTok page. I'm doing updates daily from camp. A lot of players checked in yesterday, and a lot of kind of behind the scenes work going on yesterday, probably meetings, things of that nature. Today, if you go on the TikTok page, I broke some news about Glory announced that we will be wearing our white on white with red pant combination that a lot of us are seeing recruits wearing when they come to visit. Apparently, the rumor is that Kirby challenged the subscription total for Glory, and it was hit. So on September 12th, we will be wearing the white on white with red pants for Western Kentucky. So that's fun. Curious to see what everybody thinks about that. I'm sure we have a lot of people that are highly against it. They're just like, stick to football, and I understand that's not really Kirby's way, but, I think he's trying to change a little bit with the trend, and it's helping us with NIL. It's not like we're just kind of changing uniforms for the heck of it, and I'm sure players will think it's cool. Obviously, they're doing it against Western Kentucky, so it's not like it's a big SEC game where you want to keep our minds and kind of eyes on what we're doing that at that time. But I like it. I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks. But other breaking news today was there was rumor going around about a new agreement that was going to go down with the Protect College Sports Act, and it did go down today. So, I'm reading it's not law yet, but the Senate is expected to vote on it, and we still need House approval. But if I'm not 100% on this, but I think it was supposed to be happening today. But the NIL and revenue sharing changes would be, this was agreed on by the SEC and Big Ten officially backed it. Latest version of the Federal Protect College Sports Act was that current revenue sharing cap would be $21.3 million per school. New proposal, schools could add a $27.5 million retention pool on top of that. Total potential spending about $48.8 million per school on athletes. Of the new pool, $22.5 million could be used to retain current players, while $5 million would support women's and other non-revenue sports. Bill also aims to create one national NIL standard, crack down on booster, collective, and third-party NIL around spending limits, limit athletes to one penalty-free transfer. In most cases, cap eligibility. That's interesting. Penalty-free. I don't know what that means. We'll find out, I guess. Cap eligibility at 5 years over a 5-year period. We have talked about that, and give the NCAA and Conference a stronger legal authority to enforce these rules. So obviously, this is the NCAA's play of getting it back in the NCAA's hands, because the feel lately is that judges are kind of running the show, right? So what does it mean for college football? Schools like Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Oregon, others could still spend a tremendous amount of their rosters, potentially near $50 million, but there would be a defined ceiling. Because here's what we're thinking, right? At what time in the next 2-3 years is this going to become 60, 70, $80 million? I mean, there's already schools out there that have, and they've allocated it differently, but that are spending, that money anyway when you include coaches and things of that nature and how they're going about doing it. So I find this very interesting. We'll see how this all pans out. We'll see how the NCAA governs it. We'll see what it really boils down to. Also, in the same category, and maybe I got these confused, but there's also some things they're supposed to be talked about today about that came down about 5th year eligibility. So, so players last year apparently would gain another year of eligibility, but the precursor is, and people are asking about this, like, people like Ja'Cory Thomas, can they come back and they play this year? That very well could happen, but the kind of sidebar of all this, and it wouldn't affect Ja'Cory, but is that the new portal rules means that if they weren't in the portal, they can't go seek out to play somewhere else other than the schools they were at, right? And then So basically, if Ja'Cory did, he would be coming back to Georgia because obviously he was not in the portal when he went undrafted. So interesting things here. I'll let it play out. It's not the main part of the show tonight, but just wanted to break that. Now, another thing I want to go into is I want to talk a little bit about, I've obviously riled some people up in Indiana about this Kirk Cignetti, Kirby Smart thing, right? And man, I could go on and on about the comments. A lot of them lean towards, Kurt Cignetti, nobody did the turnaround. Kirby Smart already came from a team that was dominated as far as, being able to get blue chip athletes, things of that nature. They played in the SEC. It's funny that they're all backing this up, but yet they still think the Big Ten is the best conference. But yet they back it up and go, well, Kirby and Georgia were already in the SEC. They were already, they already had an edge, this and that and the other. And then I mentioned something about having billionaire donors, things of that nature, who are spending an obscene amount of money. And then Kirk Cignetti, who there's actually an interview out there, Kirby talking very well. I mean, very good things about Kurt Cignetti. Obviously, Kirby's not going to drag anybody in public, and I don't think he's that kind of guy behind the scenes either. But, when you look at it and you look at statistics, the biggest thing that steps out from anybody is like, number one, I will give you this. Like, I see the comments, and my rebuttal, because there's so many, is the fact that, is that sustainable? Is this sustainable at Indiana with Kurt Cignetti? Like, you had Mendoza last year, who Heisman Trophy winner, first pick. I mean, what is this? You're really going to see what this year holds with Hoover. Like, Hoover had a lot of a lot of issues in some areas at quarterback. At previous schools, a lot of turnover issues. Can he get the best out of them? This is not as old of a team anymore. You don't have these veteran players like you used to have, and so you still got that money, and you're still going out there and you're signing people from the portal, and your recruiting classes are getting better. But the thing that stood out the most to me, that really that I just didn't understand, when they kept talking about like the SEC and the Big Ten, and like which one was better, and the last 3 national championships, and all these things were. It was the fact that, like, I look at the schedule this year for Indiana in general. I looked at this, right? Man, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. North Texas, 2025 records. North Texas 6-7, Indiana State 3-9, Kennesaw State 10-4, Minnesota, respectively so, 10-4 in their conference, right? Minnesota 8-5, Nebraska 9-4, Ohio State 12-2, Michigan 8-5, Northwestern 5-7, Purdue 4-8, USC 10-3, Washington 10-3, Rutgers 7-6. This was a 92-63 combined record, right? Takeaways is, you look at Nebraska 9-4, Minnesota 8-5 should also be, they're solid tests, but when you look at 3 opponents that won 10 plus games, those were also 2 of those opponents were not college football playoffs. They didn't make the college football playoffs. So when you look back at this and you kind of look at the remnants of what was left of their schedule this year, and these are obviously different teams this year, right? Some of them may get better, some of them may get worse. I don't know. Like, when you look at all this, you're staring this in the face and you're just going, how can we continue to say that the Big Ten, I mean, I don't know, man, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, Nebraska, I mean, we all can agree Nebraska's going to take a step back, right? Minnesota, and they're going to take a step back. How many of these teams would actually survive in an SEC schedule? That's kind of what I want to know. That's kind of where I'll leave it. I'll just leave it at that. I obviously, we're gonna be talking tomorrow night. We're going live. I got the crew in tomorrow night as we kick off fall camp. What would be a better way to kick it off than to bring in my man Fish, Rich Man? So it's going to be a full show tomorrow night. You're going to hear a lot more of them than me. We're going to have some fun talking about the opening day of Cleats on the Ground at camp. But hey, let's hop right in. I'm gonna move over and get to some of my notes here. It's gonna be a fun show tonight. We are finishing up kind of our episode of Hot Takes. What's about to happen to Georgia in 2026? What do we think will happen? We went over in episode 110, part 1. We talked about outrageous but could happen hot takes, right? So go check those out if you haven't already done so. They're very interesting as far as that concerned. We talked about Gunnar Stockton, and we talked about Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. What are the chances of them having 2,000 yards? Bobo winning the Broyles Award. It's a good episode. A lot of what ifs, but I thought it would be cool in part 2 tonight to talk about players nobody is talking about yet, and then go into some biggest strengths for Georgia, and then biggest weaknesses, obviously, and then ending by doing a buy or sell, right? Kind of talking about, do we buy or sell some of these things that are happening with Georgia in the upcoming season? So let's hop right in really quick. So let's start out with this. Players nobody's talking about, okay? I think, some of the questions I have, and I jotted these down, was the first one I'll say is, who would become that guy if, and then you insert this question. So who would become that guy if a young receiver finally emerges as Georgia's go-to playmaker? Okay. Now, I thought of a lot of people. I looked at this one's kind of out of the box for me, and it's kind of a reach. Okay. I look at Isaiah Cannon, and I think of the things I'm hearing about him, and I'm hearing the great things that Gunner's talking about him, and I'm hearing kind of those Gunner-esque words that he used about Zach Branch last year about Isaiah Cannon, as well as obviously the excitement of Jacoby White-Helton, and some of these young receivers, right? So London Humphreys, obviously, you look to get more out of London Humphreys, and London Humphreys had a lot more touches last year than I think people realize. He was really a target that Gunner really went to a lot. He depended on a lot outside of Zach Branch. For me, right, I think of the key moment in here is playmaker, right? A name that's going to maybe unearth itself during camp, right, is Craig Dandridge. It's a guy both. It's a guy that really was talked about a lot. You saw a lot of quarterbacks really put a lot of trust in him, throwing the ball his direction. He has big playmaker ability. He's obviously young. So it's still, we've seen that Georgia has leaned more towards playing young players, and are kind of coming out of that now, to where I think Kirby's trusting that a little more, especially with these guys early enrolling, being able to come to playoff or bowl practices, things of that nature. So the Craig Dandridge is an interesting subject. Great hands, very elusive, comes in as a high quality playmaker. And obviously the questions we have is, can he protect the ball? Is he going to be dependent on as far as like discipline, route running, blocking? Obviously blocking is huge for the receiver room and tight end room, obviously at Georgia. So do all those things line up so that he can be given the opportunity to make some game-breaking plays at the wide receiver position? Now, I told you this is a little bit of a reach for me on this one, but I like it. I like the reach on this one. I like Craig Dandridge. I see him being a guy that can come out of camp as a, man, I didn't know about that guy, but wow, right? Second question, and when we said who could become that guy, a tight end that becomes a security blanket on third down, okay? This one for me, I went back and forth with this one because I want to find a spot in here where I look and go, Jaden Riddell was really incredible during the spring, right? He blossomed in so many areas. And I know what you guys are going to say. You're like, well, we have had these moments where certain players have blossomed during spring, getting more touches, getting more looks, injuries affecting what's going on. So these players tend to get more looks on offense, and then they kind of go away, and you don't see anything else with them in the regular season. I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to keep the athleticism of Jaden Riddell. I mean, I also think that people, and once again, it's like you hate using this terminology. People were like, man, and they said this about Ethan Barbour too, but they're like, man, who does this guy look like, right? A little more oomph, a little more pep in his speed, those hands, making those catches that are just kind of out of this world, being able to get open, get off of some of this coverage, and just becoming nightmares as far as if linebackers are matched up against him. So maybe we could see that. But honestly, on third down, I would say that you got to have this guy third down and goal line stuff. Like I think this is an Elias Williams moment, right? And you got this big 6'5", 6'6" kid who's come in highly rated in a room that is loaded, but you see where we're going with this, right? He has some really good speed for his height. He has good hands, good soft hands. He runs great routes, and he's a smart kid. So I think this is an area that Elias Williams could really break out and be that kind of person to go, hey, like it's third down, you need a catch. Where you go, and obviously he's going to be a mismatch in a lot of areas where you put him. So interested to see that. That's my take. I think Elias Williams pops up there. Now, if I look at who could become that guy, an offensive lineman becomes an All-American. This one was easy for me, okay? All-American. Notice I didn't say most improved, yada, yada, yada. But I think Drew Bobo is one of the most overrated offensive linemen, in college football and in the SEC. I think this guy's a coach's kid. I think he's smart. I think he's a lover of the game. He reminds you of one of those guys that it's like, I mean, he was missed. He was tremendously missed. Him and Gabe White. I really would love to see the difference in that game against Ole Miss if you have Gabe White and you have Drew Bobo on that line. It's just a game changer in my opinion. So I don't know. Drew Bobo for me could be a guy that, I mean, there's a reason why he was at media days. I'm sorry, I said Gabe White. I'm looking at my notes. It's Gabe Harris, actually. My dearest apologies. I knew the name, but obviously reading some of my notes, they start to entangle each other. So anyways, Gabe Harris. I think Gabe Harris and Drew Bobo were extremely missed with their injuries in the playoffs. And I got Drew Bobo right here coming out as a potential All-American on the offensive line. Now, who's the guy? And I went and did a little video on this on TikTok about, like, Georgia likes to roll at least 4 linebackers at the inside linebacker position. And we know that with Justin Williams, with Chris Cole, with Raylan, these are the guys kind of that you would see being in there. I mean, it's more dependent upon like who's going to start there, right? But a rotational linebacker that could explode for double-digit sacks. Now, when I look at Chris Cole, I thought that's a guy I would see last year, but the more and more I'm seeing Chris Cole's skill set, the reason kind of with Jaden Walker and things of that nature that I would see that are not really similarities is I do think that sometimes Chris Cole's length sometimes might enable him a little bit. He does get caught up in the mix a little bit, and he's very elusive. He's quick. He's twitchy. But I think he's very smart. He's a great tackler, but he doesn't stand out to me like he did last year as being a person to go, if I had to name it, it's Chris Cole. Now, name that does come to mind with a lot of electric speed and kind of that Jaden Walker twitch, to me, is Zayden Walker. Okay. I think this kid is definitely going to be, him and Terrell Foster, there's going to be a lot of talk and a lot of work at, looking what's that fourth linebacker in that rotation look like. I think Zayden Walker's just a little bit different, a little bit more twitchier, a little bit more speed, elusiveness, get to the quarterback. He gave us another gear last year towards the last 6 games of the year. I like him. I like him as a kid that could turn around and really give us, double-digit sacks is very high. Now, the biggest take on this is do we have somebody that has double-digit sacks this year? I don't know. If we do, then we've accomplished our goal of causing more havoc this year, creating more explosive plays on defense as well, getting to the quarterback more. The next one and last one I have is who could become that guy? I have it as defensive back. It's Georgia's next first-round NFL draft pick, and this was an easy one for me. I think Ellis Robinson is going to be really good this year. I think Ellis has done what I call the Kirby Smart time, right? Kirby is, especially in the defensive backs, because Kirby was a defensive back, right? Especially because a defensive guy, but Kirby's always been a guy that's very hard on the secondary, right? He likes them to know their assignments. He likes those guys to know how to play everybody's spot, whether it's weak side, strong side, QB 1 or 2, whether it's strong safety, free safety, star. Those guys have to know all of those roles, not necessarily because they're going to play them, but because if you know them, then you have a better outlook on when you're playing with them, where they're going to be, what they're doing, and what they should be doing, and it gives us an upper hand as far as how we play the game in the secondary, right? So, in my opinion, Ellis Robinson has made leaps and bounds not only in his coverage skills, but as far as his tackling. And I really see him stepping up this year with KJ Bolden in that leadership aspect. And so, um, you know, is this obviously, KJ Bolden as well? Yes, of course. I mean, either of these guys, but, um, you know, the the go-to would be KJ, obviously. I mean, he's a no-brainer back there, but um, I would say both, but the one that came to mind that has the highest ceiling this year to really blow the roof off, in my opinion, is Ellis Robinson. It's just me. Um, so other fun questions, right? I thought this would be cool, right? Because I do have this player in here, but I thought it'd be cool because everybody talks about they like to compare every year, like who's this and who's that, and what does that look like this year? And I thought the main three players that I thought that they love to like compare to, right? I mean, Brock always comes up, Lad always comes up, and I know I've done it before, but Malachi tends to come up as well. But like, who is this year's, and then fill in the blank? I thought this would be fun, right? Um, I think Lad McConkey. I think, and not because I won't dive into that. I'll just say it, and everybody else can have their opinions. But London Humphreys could be this guy, right? I do feel like Lad was a guy that the reason he was so good was, yes, he had great hands, but he ran great routes. He was very smart. He had great connection with Stetson, and that duo was like timing is everything, right? Route running, and I think he showed that as well in the NFL. Timing is everything. Great route running, then obviously catching the ball in traffic situations is huge. I think we don't realize how much London Humphreys was targeted last year. But I think London Humphreys could be that guy. Next, I look at Malachi Starks. Like, who is that? And these are the captain obvious, right? KJ Bolden. I know Malachi was very athletic. He was a guy that when he was at Georgia, he was kind of like KJ in aspects. So I was going, man, I'm counting down the days that because I loved Malachi, man. He came in, he played. It was very very much the same as KJ. Came in, played early, very athletic, very smart, knew the game, was a student of the game, and teammates were better around him. And I think KJ Bolden is that this year. And then the name that's really overused is Brock Bowers. You can't really fit. Lawson Lucky is a guy that's in his own shell, and he's going to be definitely the guy that's probably the starter day one. He's earned that right, and I think he's going to be a big target as well as a lot of the tight ends for Gunner. But I see. I don't know, man. I heard this called a lot. I'm going to make my bet is not going to be on Lawson. My bet is going to be that this guy's more like the Jaden Riddell, right? Because I look at Brock Bowers and we lined him up at running back. We lined him up at tight end. We lined him up at wide receiver. Could Jaden Riddell be that guy that can swing those changes like that and be put in those situations? I know that the tight ends are going to have to offset this, all this talk about how Georgia's wide receiver room is going to be the downfall. Everybody is depending on, well, what happens with their wide receiver room is what happens with Georgia as far as their record and how far they go. I think everybody's missing the fact that these tight ends are going to be a huge, huge part of how we throw the football. Okay. So I think people are forgetting that. Not a lot of people are pulling that into play. They're thinking it's all on Taylor Taylor. They're thinking it's all on Sokovia White-Helton and Isaiah Cannon and London and all these guys. It's not. These tight ends are going to be used in situations. I mean, this tight end room is too talented not to have a lot of these players on the field at the same time. So yeah, really quick before we get into the fun part towards the end here, a lot of people ask me all the time. They're like, what's the biggest strengths for Georgia, and what are the biggest weaknesses coming into this year? As we kind of cover the broad topics from Georgia going into camp. And I've used all these things, and I want you to kind of know where I'm at, and I want you to kind of know like what we're leaning on this year and what we're really, I think, what's going to be really talked about and focused a lot, not only in camp, but into the first few games of the season, as hopefully some of these younger players and actually the starters get a chance to really rep some of these things. But um, I think as far as strengths, I mean, you look at culture, right? Nobody develops talent like Kirby, right? And this staff. Um, Georgia has been known to rebuild, and I'm sorry, Georgia's been known to not just rebuild, but to reload, right? And you're constantly seeing that every year. To be able to, and that could change, dynamic could change every year, but to be able to go into the portal minimally to get the needs they have and to, in past years, in some key areas, not really get any great reps, whether it be due to injury or it didn't pan out from those portal hits, shows the development and the culture of how Georgia looks at bringing those players that are coming through and doing it the Georgia way. They're really trusting the fact that they're going to get to the point where they're going to be starters and they're going to be able to get in there and make a difference. So that's huge, in my opinion, because if you're not having players that have not been in your system and have been in your culture every single year, and you're trying to do that, you tend to start making excuses like LSU does, where it's like, well, you guys are expecting me to win day one. And yes, I know Kirby's been there way longer than Lane Kiffin has, but you're asking me to win day one. Yeah, with the roster money you're spending and the things you went out and did to try to do it, yeah, you should. You should be not only winning, but you should be very nervous if you don't, with the amount of money you're throwing at players to try to go win games with a team that hasn't played together. They hadn't even been together, but for a short amount of time. Second thing I would say is I like the strength of the defensive front this year. A lot of returners in that area. We're going to cover a lot of it as we go through camp. We're going to highlight all these areas, so I don't want to ruin those highlights. We're going to go in depth about the quarterback position. As actually tomorrow night, we're going to do a lot of what we call panic meters, right? Where do we look at the panic meter for each area, whether it be tight ends, cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers, offensive line, running backs? We're going to look at each one of them, but I do think this defensive front is going to be a strength for Georgia this year. Player development, we talked about this. You hear it all the time. Georgia comes in, those players come in ready to play in the NFL. They come in ready. This is a huge recruiting tactic for Georgia as well, right? For players to understand that when they come to Georgia, on top of being able to obviously be able to be appreciated, to come into a great culture, a school that prides themselves on having great facilities, great pageantry, not only in football, but this year, winning the SEC in football and in baseball, the traditions, playing in the SEC, playing in stadiums every single Saturday, um, that are just incredible atmospheres. The player development on top of that, and knowing that you have the opportunity to get drafted high, and not only get drafted high, but as soon as you go in to get quality playing time, that's going to give you the opportunity to play and make more money at the big level, right? And that's what you want to do, because players at that level, it's their job, right? And then coaching stability. This is a huge thing as well. Whether fans agree with it or not, Kirby Smart has publicly backed every single person in that coach's room, whether it be, things we've expected from Mike Bobo. I've been in that corner before. I'm not sitting here playing like I haven't. Glenn Schumann, everybody who has just kind of tugged at their name throughout the last year or two. Coaching turnover is huge. Players tend to change their minds, talk about should they be going to those schools, and second guessing, what's going on as far as how they were recruited, depending upon if everybody's, losing coaches every year, not just due to them going to the NFL or, tiring or whatever, but just literally losing their job because I don't know that they didn't have a great year or play calling but I do think that when you look at the makeup of our coaching staff, it's really, really awesome, man. Like it's so well balanced. I still have the utmost respect and the utmost trust in Glenn Schumann and Mike Bobo, and I trust Kirby in those decisions. A lot of people are like, look, with Mike Bobo and Glenn Schumann, we're not going to win anymore. championships. And it's like, I don't, that's a really rough take. Okay. I mean, a really rough take. I get it that Bobo hasn't done it when he's been at Georgia. I don't know that you've had on offense a Stetson Bennett and a Lab McConkey and a Brock Bowers and a Darnell Washington and the line that we had. And, when you start to look at some of those pieces, man, you go, there was a combination of really great play calling, but really, really great players as well. So, and then when you look at weaknesses, now these are key because these are things that you're going to also look at coming out of camp and go, can these things get better from a standpoint of how much can we get these things better and get these things ready and on point before we actually go between the hedges for these games. And then before we actually go on the road against Arkansas and come back game 4 and play Oklahoma at home, we will be tested early. So these things will have to be really, kept close to us as we monitor them. But the first thing I would say is, and Kirby's mentioned this, is explosive passing game. Can Georgia consistently create explosive plays against elite defenses? And that would even venture out to just say any defense, right? Can we play up to a level where no matter if we're playing team A, team B, and C, and the records are elite, mid-level, or horrible? Because you all know this too. There's been games in the previous years where you just look and you scratch your head and go, "How in the world was that game close?" Or did we just not show up? Like, I mean, it's happened before. We've sat through them before. But like, can we do that? Like, can Gunner sling it around the park and be able to? I mean, if we can, it's only going to make this running back room and this offensive line that stands a chance of being as dominant as ever this year. It's going to make it even more crazy elite. If you give Georgia a passing game that has to be respected, this is going to be a very, very potent offense this year. I repeat this. This is a hot take. Some people may believe it. Some may not. But if we can get some explosive passing plays, this offense will be absolutely unstoppable and explosive because this running back room and this offensive line are already going to prove to be the game changer on this team. And if you add that to the list, the sky is the limit for Georgia this year in the SEC and winning a national championship. Now, adding to that, the pass rush. Can Georgia create pressure this year? We talked about the strengths of the defensive line. We talked about, the linebacker. This is going to be one of our. Will this be one of our best linebacker rooms ever at Georgia? It's still out there to see, but it stands a chance. I mean, I like the names. I like the makeup of it. But can we get to the quarterback, right? Not only can we get to the quarterback, can we get the quarterback on the ground? I've seen years where we're like, well, we're answering the question. We're getting to the quarterback. But, like, can we get him down? Can we get him on the ground? I'm sure every Georgia fan is like, yeah, we got a Trinidad Chambliss, but we just could never get him down. Like, every time he turned around, you're like, hey, I see 5 white jerseys or 6 red jerseys around him. And then next thing I know, I see him still up and making plays. And it's like, why can't we get him down, right? Why can't we get the quarterback on the ground? So obviously, a huge weakness in the past that has to come out as a strength this year and in the future. And in our offensive identity, will Georgia lean on the run or air it out? And that kind of meshes into what I was talking about with the pass rush. I mean, balance is something Kirby goes for. Balance is talked about all the time in the SEC. I think you can only go so far being a strict air raid or, a strict just ground and pound. I think we've seen how those things can backfire on us, especially at Georgia. So, we got to find a way that we can be balanced this year. Easy, bar none. So cool. So that brings us to kind of towards the end. Give us a little buy, sell going on. And so I thought these would be fun as we end the night. And yeah, then we'll have a little rapid fire, and this is gonna be fun. Let's go through it real quick. I thought this would be the fun way that we preview Georgia. So let's keep going at it. So buy or sell. So I'm gonna go through these real quick. So these are great questions going through the entire, all around the Georgia forums, all around SEC media days. I thought this would be fun to do. So buy or sell. Georgia produces another Heisman finalist. I'm a sell on that because I really feel like we know Georgia. We know the makeup of Georgia. Do I think that Gunner has the opportunity to do it? Absolutely. But I think when you look at it at the end of the day, this is a team that's built off of team. There's puzzle pieces that come together and make this team what it is. And I don't think, I think Gunner's been on some short lists, maybe some long lists is a better way to say it. But I'm going to sell that because I just feel like Georgia, for the most part, doesn't produce at a high level as far as one playmaker being able to have enough snaps and have enough reps and touches to be able to put up those type of Heisman numbers. Also, combined with the season you'll have. Georgia, the second one is Georgia has 2 1,000-yard receivers. Yeah, I'm going to sell this one too. We all know how the talk has been. I think the combination you're going to see this year is the tight end room with this young but balanced wide receiver room. This is going to be a combined effort this year, okay? I'm just telling you. You heard it here first. Every single talk about what about this wide receiver room? What about this wide receiver room? Georgia's not just depending on this wide receiver room to get the job done, to stretch the field, and to make the passing game more explosive. They're depending on this incredibly talented tight end room. There are athletes in that tight end room that will be lined up in so many exotic formations this year that it will add to the passing game in so many different levels. That's probably going to take on the persona of where the wide receivers also need to produce. I think it's going to be a balance of both. But I'll sell that, I really think, that's a sell. Easy as can say it. Georgia has 1,000-yard rusher. Also going to sell this. I think that, I talked about earlier on, could Chauncey and Nate have a combined 2,000? And so I know that's a weird dynamic. I'm actually, that really both can't happen, right? I guess what I'll say is I think that one of these guys might go off a little more than the other. So maybe yes, maybe they will. And out of the two, obviously, I think Nate Frazier would be that. But I don't see both of them doing 1,000. I see maybe Nate could go off and do 1,000, and maybe Chauncey could do 700-800, right? It could happen. The only thing I worry about is if that statistic is correct, do we have the passing game that can help us? I would much rather not have those and have the passing game intact enough to be able to be productive and balance both sides of the ball to win football games and to go along with the playoff. Next one is the Bulldogs lead the SEC in scoring defense. Yeah, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy this all day long. I think this defense it has the makeup they've been hearing it all their career. This was a defense that started as a young defense that was hearing all the time. It's like, we can't get to the quarterback. We can't do this. We can't do that. And it was, we got to do this. We got to do that. And they constantly were the statistic of falling short. And so at the end of the day, I think this is a year where you look at the depth in the linebacker room, you look at the explosiveness on the defensive line and what we have coming back, and you look at the secondary, who we've done a lot of great work. I haven't even mentioned Jamari Riddle and some of these other guys with Khalil Barnes as well as Dinkins. I did a whole thing on that on Camp Day 1 on TikTok. Go check it out if you haven't. But I'd buy this. I think we can create havoc this year, and we can add a layer for Georgia to be successful and help the offensive out with some points on the board from the defense. Georgia has 5 first-round NFL draft picks. I'm going to sell this. I mapped them out. I think the possibility of first round, if it's a buy, it would have to be Bolden, Robinson, Frazier, Bobo, Green, or Cole in some aspect, right? I don't know, really. They could. I mean, could people that would have to have the breakout years? I do think Ellis and Bolden are yes in that caption. How big of a year does Green, Cole, and Frazier have would determine if that's going to be it. But I'm going to sell on that one. I don't think that happens. Kirby Smart wins SEC Coach of the Year. Yeah, I buy that. I think the SEC goes through Georgia until it doesn't. And I think Kirby Smart is a very methodical thinker. I think he is, he's the guy. He's the leaned on guy in the SEC. But I think he's proven how to work the gauntlet, especially this year in a 9-game SEC schedule. That's the huge thing. This is definitely a chess match this year. I keep hearing everybody's like, going to be a lot of 9-3 teams. It's going to be a lot of 9-3 teams. Might rightfully so. ESPN, you can go check it out, has Georgia predicted at 12-0. That's tough, man. So I'm just telling you, the SEC is going to be good this year. Which once again tells me, and backs my info that SEC is the best conference in college football, bar none. Am I biased? Yeah, because I think I'm right. Sorry. Kirby Smart wins SEC Coach of the Year. I buy that. So Georgia has the nation's #1 recruiting class. I'm going to sell on this. You know that Georgia doesn't chase NIL dollars. This has changed the game. This is not, you don't really see this anymore. This is not a celebrated moment anymore, especially with the portal. Recruiting is important. Don't get me wrong. Georgia loves to recruit young kids that have talent and develop them and keep them in the system um, and honor them with money each year. And you've seen the proof in the pudding in those things. And so, no, I don't think so, because I don't think this is a area where people care anymore, right? They care about getting the players in the positions that they need, right? That's their goal. So nobody's out to try to go for, if that's the case, I'm sure a lot of these guys with the top recruiting classes have probably overpaid some guys that are not promised that they're going to actually see playing time the following year and have a higher chance of, one and done and transferring out. So I'm going to sell that. Georgia wins every home game by double digits. Yeah, I'll sell that too. A lot of tough games at home this year. I think Oklahoma is going to be a tough one at home this year. I think Auburn's going to be very much improved. They always play Georgia really tough. I think Alex Golish, keep an eye on Auburn this year. They're going to be a little different. If they have a very doable schedule, it's tough but doable heading up to Georgia. But they have a chance to have a really good record coming into Athens. I just don't see that game. That game's never, and especially with the change in coaching, it's not going to be a blowout. You got Missouri, who's going to late in the year, who's probably going to be a little bit better on defense, even though they bring back you have one returning starter on defense, and so, but I still think with Ahmad Hardy and their intentionality on the run game, I think that it's going to keep the score close, and so I can see that being a close game, and then so those are 3 games that stand out to me right off the bat at home that would kind of knock that off. So I'm going to sell that. Georgia's defense scores 5 touchdowns combined this year. Yeah, I buy that. I repeat, I think the defense is going to be fun to watch this year. I'll just leave it at that. I think the defense is going to be really fun to watch. I am hoping, because I just love watching a really disciplined, great tackling defense that really it's just fun to watch, man. And you would probably say, well, yeah, versus what, Ted? It's like, you want to watch you want to watch a defense that gets blown up every play and, gets thrown on every day and the quarterback's running around like, no, I don't like watching that, obviously. And I don't like watching getting rushed on for hundreds of yards, but I will say that at the end of the day, like scoring touchdowns and taking points and turning them in to put them on the board on defense is a huge get. And I think we have that athleticism on defense to do that. It's a big get, but I'm going to buy that. And the last one, Georgia reaches the college football playoff. I'm going to buy that. I think Georgia, I think there'll be 4, if not 5 teams that make the college football playoff out of the SEC. I think Georgia's one of them. Last but not least, rapid fire. This is going to be quick, right? We're going to end the show with this for tonight, but rapid fire. So we're going to do it really, really quick. It's basically one of those one-word answer, what comes to mind type thing. So let's hit it. Let's go through it. And then we'll talk about like season predictions, and then we're going to get out of here. One-word answer. Who leads Georgia in? So passing, Gunner. Rushing, I got Nate. Receiving, I got Cannon. I got Isaiah Cannon. One word, so I can't say the whole name. Sacks, Elijah. Interceptions, KJ. Tackles, I got Cole. Touchdowns, Gunner. Biggest surprise, I got Bobo. I actually have Mike Bobo. Not Drew Bobo, Mike Bobo. Biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment, I think whoever is at cornerback 2. I think there could be a little bit of I like Tyreek Green. I like some of these young guys, and I'm interested to see what DeMello looks like this year. I got a lot of faith in DeMello, but I can only do one word, so I'm gonna go CB2. Team MVP, I got Gunner. Offensive MVP, I got Gunner. Defensive MVP, I got Griffin. Most improved player, I got Zayden. That's for Zayden Walker. Freshman of the year, still going to Dandridge. Going to Craig Dandridge. Georgia outlook. I mean, I feel really good. I feel really good to say the ceiling is 12-0. And I feel really good saying that the floor is 10-2, and I like 11-1. Okay. The floor is 10-2, which is a playoff team. 12-0 is the ceiling. And I like 11-1 as calling it. Playoff berth, yes. Bold prediction, Georgia's defense just finishes in the top 3 nationally, while the offense improves enough to make the Bulldogs one of the most complete teams in college football. That's it for me. Final question for fans. And this is just for you, right? I want you to think about this. I'll know Georgia is winning the national championship when, right? So drop your answer in the comment box. I'm actually going to clip this for TikTok and say it again. Final question for fans is, as we head into camp and head into a New Year's, I know Georgia is winning the national championship when. I'd love to hear that answer. Make sure that you go and like and follow us. TikTok is getting going. We are revving up. TikTok's going to be a big platform for us this year. We feel like TikTok is a platform that a lot of people are on. It's a way for us to get even more information out there, which is awesome. So be checking in on TikTok. Go and like and follow us on Dogs Down South, as well as YouTube Dogs Down South, Facebook, Apple Podcast Dogs Down South. Episode 110 Part 1 is up right now. This is Part 2, and it will be up within 24 hours later. You can always catch it 24 hours later, so make sure you do that. Make sure you join us live tomorrow night, where me, Fish, and Rich Man, hadn't seen Rich Man in a while, but we got him in here. It's going to be a cool night. We're going to talk about Camp Day 1, and we're going to talk about panic meters. This should be fun. So if you haven't already done so, please go and like and follow us on all our platforms. I think I said that already, but it's getting late. So I'm going to get off, and looking forward to Camp Day 1 tomorrow to give you looking forward for highlights on TikTok. Go over there and catch that. Follow us, because that's where you're going to catch all the highlights daily. So we're going to have literally about 30 in a row coming right at you every single day heading up to game 1. So excited. All is in the air. Pumpkin spice lattes around the corner. Football is starting tomorrow. So we get to see pictures and hear whistles. And if you're close to the practice field, you're probably going to hear Kirby tomorrow. So for myself and all of Dog Nation, I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great rest of your summer and start to your fall. And as always on Dogs Down South, go Dogs.